Hala Madrid is the only wood coaster in the United Arab Emirates. Located at Real Madrid World, this GCI creation is marketed as having the most airtime of any coaster. It is an impressive looking ride, but does it deliver on that airtime claim? And how does it stack up to the company's other coasters? Find out in this review. Six Flags Dubai was a theme park proposed for the Dubai Land complex. This park would have had multiple roller coasters, but it was ultimately cancelled. So the rides that were already designed and or fabricated were dispersed among the properties at the Dubai Parks and Resorts that actually opened. Motion Gate, which is widely considered to be the complex's best park, received an S&S Free Spin and John Wick Open contract, and a Mauer Spinner and Now You See Me High Roller. These opened in early 2022. The complex's least liked park was Bollywood Parks. The park was highly praised for its theming and shows, but it was criticized for its severe lack of rides. So they received a more substantial addition, a GCI wood coaster designed by Skyline Attractions to have the most instances of airtime of any coaster. Named Bombay Express, it was constructed during the 2020 and 2021 seasons. Skyline shared footage of the ride testing in 2021, but it never opened. Flash forward to 2023. Bollywood Parks, which was continuing to suffer from low attendance, closed. It was then announced the park would reopen in 2024 as Real Madrid World. It seemed quite jarring to convert a theater-themed park into a soccer-football-themed park, but it allowed the park to live on in some capacity, and Bombay Express would finally open, just renamed as Hala Madrid. These words are the Real Madrid soccer team's famous battle cry, essentially translating to Let's Go Madrid. It is a very loose theme, but I'm just glad the coaster is open. The ride is located on the edge of the property, running alongside the parking lot, so arguably the best views occur outside the park. And this ride has a striking structure. It is the country's only wood coaster, so it looks unlike any other ride in the area. It is a giant sea of airtime hills. Then, like many of GCI's recent coasters that have been built in hot climates, it utilizes a steel support structure to help with its longevity. Thus, it is a hybrid coaster. From within the park, the ride's lift hill is positioned at the end of the main midway. This is accompanied by the ride's entry plaza. The station is this large, kind of awkward looking building, presumably because it was meant to look like a theater in the Bombay Express days. But the most striking feature is a large video screen showing soccer highlights. This is especially eye-catching at night. The queue covers 2 levels. The lower floor is a series of switchbacks past video screens showcasing the soccer club's history and highlights. Then the top level brings you to the station, where you see the club's championship banners hanging from the ceiling. Fortunately, you likely will never have to wait in any of this. As with most of the Dubai parks, this ride is almost always a walk-on. That was the case for me when I visited on a summer evening recently. That was even with this ride having a relatively low throughput. The trains are incredibly short for a wood coaster of this scale, featuring just 7 rows. So they seat a max of 14 riders per cycle. Per the designers, they went with the shorter train so the ride could contain tighter maneuvers, presumably so they could jam in more hills to go for that airtime record. The park owns 3 trains, but I've never heard of them running more than just one, which again is usually fine with this park's typical attendance. I think the extra trains are more about having spares if a train is unavailable for maintenance or a seasonal teardown. If you do visit on a busy day, it is included in the park's paid Q-Fast Skip the Line pass. This routes you directly to the station, granting near immediate boarding. Seating on this coaster is on a first-come basis. If the row you want has already been taken, staff members are happy to let you wait an extra cycle. For the best experience, you really need to sit on the ends of the train. A lot of the hills didn't really hit in the middle rows. I much preferred the back row overall. There was a larger quantity of airtime, and that first drop is absolutely spectacular there. I thought this coaster would utilize GCI's newer Infinity Flyer trains, but it actually still uses their classic Millennium Flyers. Riders are secured by seatbelts and individual T-shaped lap bars. Staff members here really push the restraints down hard though, much more so than any of the other GCIs I've experienced. This can make it a bit tougher to feel the airtime. On the bright side, staff members were loading the trains quite quickly at least. The only holdup was waiting for guests to completely empty their pockets. As with most of the coasters in the UAE, this ride has a very strict loose article policy. Nothing can ride in your pockets. Once secured, you turn left out of the station. It is a tight turn with a little downwards dip, so you actually get a smidge of laterals here. You then ascend the 113-foot or 34-meter tall lift hill. This makes it one of the company's taller coasters. Once at the top, you have easily the best drop of any GCI. It is apparent looking at this plunge off ride that is profiled much differently than usual. Most first drops on GCI are twisting plunges that are more about laterals. When they do make a straight drop, you rapidly reach the max angle of descent, often getting floater airtime. Hala Madrid is a straight drop, but is considerably steeper, reaching a max angle of descent of 64 degrees, and is more parabolic shaped. As it takes longer to reach that max angle, the end result for riders is a far stronger airtime sensation. Even in the front, you get a little floater, but if you're in the back row, you get great yank over the top and strong sustained flagector the whole way down. Honestly, this drop feels most similar to a first drop in one of the newer B&M hypers like Candymonium at Hershey Park, or Mako at SeaWorld Orlando, just scaled down. You then fly over a tiny speed hump, which gives everyone a solid flagector pop. Based on these first two elements, I was expecting this ride to be a powerhouse. However, the remaining airtime was much milder. You then rise into the first turnaround. GCIs usually level off sharply into their turnarounds, resulting in brief but powerful airtime pops. The entry into Hala Madrid's turnaround is much smoother, so you only get some weak floater in front. This is a recurring theme with this coaster. This turn leads to a double down. Everyone at minimum gets weak floater on both humps. But if you're in the back row, that first dip offers decent floater as you are pulled down it. Immediately afterwards, you have a double up into the second turnaround. The first hump is so short that it feels more akin to a speed hill. It offers okay floater in the front row, and light floater further back in the train. To get any airtime on the second hump, you really need to be up front, but even there, it is quite mild. You then have a rightward turn. Rather than having a sizable drop back down to ground level from here, this next part stays elevated. You have a small dip offering a little floater in the back. Then, you have back-to-back bunny hills. The second one offers a little pop of air in the back, but they otherwise lack negative Gs. The entry into turnaround 3 offers a smidge of floater in the front. Now unfortunately, this is the last airtime you get up front. Then, you have a rightward turn. A lot of the elements from this point forwards are tucked within the structure, which yields some great head choppers, and it helps with a sense of speed. The drop off this turnaround once again does not go all the way down, so you again just get weak floater in the back. Then, you have a surprise bank turn left, offering some laterals. Then, you have a camelback broken up by a slight leftward turn at the top, but it's too shallow to offer any negative Gs. This is followed by a sharply banked turn upwards. This rides a max bank angle of 73 degrees, and I'm almost certain this is where it occurs. On ride, it feels pretty darn close to 90 degrees since you're disoriented from the adjacent support structure. The drop off this element finally brings you back down to ground level, and it also offers some weak floater in the back. This is followed by some small humps that fail to get you out of your seat, but there is a sudden rightward turn at least offering a good lateral jolt. Then, you have one last turnaround. This one has decent speed, so you'll get some laterals on the turn, and the resultant drop has a tiny pop of air in back. Hala Madrid then concludes with a banked double up into the brakes. It looks sorta like the finale in White Lightning, except here it does not offer any airtime. You then hit the brakes and return to the station, ending the 3,440 foot or 1,049 meter long experience. Is the ride smooth? I know that was a major concern when a wood coaster of this scale was constructed in the desert. Well, I'm pleased to say, As of this recording in 2025, it is a really smooth ride. Time will tell how it holds up though. There is not another precedent in the UAE that we can look to. In terms of pacing, this ride holds its speed well. It does not feel sluggish. I just wish the hills were profiled differently. I have seen this ride reported as having 33 different airtime moments, but not all of them hit. Only a third of the hills actually offer airtime, but the number is even less if you're in a middle row. Then a majority of the hills in the second half fail to offer any airtime, regardless of where you're seated. It also doesn't help much of the airtime is weak floater, which is severely inhibited if you're stapled, which is often the case from experience. I know some have pointed to the short trains potentially being an issue, but GCI has proven they can make a ride jam-packed with airtime, even with short trains. Just look at the aforementioned White Lightning. I really think it's more about how the hills are shaped. Now it is possible I caught this coaster on a bad day, but it should have been running at its peak. Wood coasters tend to run faster both on hot days and later in the operational day. I experienced this coaster on a summer evening when temperatures were still above 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Rides also tend to carry more speed with a full train, and when I rode it, most rows were typically filled. I just think this ride is more about quantity over quality. I personally would have preferred if this coaster had half the hills if each one was profiled to offer more consistent and extreme negative Gs. So, what would I rate Hala Madrid? I would give this coaster a 6 out of 10. This is a decent wood coaster, but it did let me down relative to my expectations. When I heard this coaster had the record for the most airtime, I was expecting a frenetic blitz of airtime pops. However, the airtime in this coaster is much milder and more sporadic than the other GCIs. And that really is a shame because it has more than enough speed to do something interesting. That being said, it is still a fun ride. The first drop is excellent, one of the best of any wood coaster. Then the ride maintains a good pace throughout the layout with some light airtime along the way. Just not the record-breaking amount they advertised. If you're in the UAE on a coaster trip, I would definitely recommend popping in a Real Madrid World for this coaster, especially if you already find yourself at the nearby motion gate. Just try to go in with the proper expectations, unlike myself. Those are my thoughts on Hala Madrid at Real Madrid World. What are your thoughts on the UAE's only wood coaster? Let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed this review, I would appreciate it if you gave this video a like, and you consider subscribing, because there'll be a lot more roller coaster and amusement park videos here at Canopy Coaster. Thanks for watching.